The Chinese Communist Party members who took control of mainland China in 1949 were die-hard atheists. Although the Constitution acknowledges freedom of religion, the Communist Party's covert goal is to limit, transform, and eventually eliminate religions. From 1949 to 1953, at least several thousand Christians were killed. Tens of thousands were imprisoned. While these horrors were happening, Premier Zhou Enlai invited Wu Yaozong to a number of meetings. They launched the Three Self-Patriotic Movement. It urged Christians to join the government-controlled Three Self Church, which advocated self-governance, self-support, and self-propagation. Its aim was to put Christians under the complete control of the Communist Party.
I was imprisoned because I refused to join the Three Self-Patriotic Movement.
I love my country very much. My students are the best pianists in China. Some even went abroad to perform, and they were well received everywhere. I didn't break any laws. But the government wanted to denounce me anyway. The real reason was that I spread the gospel and refused to join the Three Self Church.
I
was a good friend of Wu Yaozong, the leader of the Three Self movement, but I was surprised when he asked me to be part of the leadership. I refused, even though I knew my refusal would lead me to prison and labor camp. I considered all the consequences. Sure enough, on the evening of May 28, 1956, people from the police and public security came to take me away.
On September 14, 1955, I was sent to prison for the first time. 16 months I spent there. In 1958, I was sentenced to 20 years. I wasn't released until 1978.
The first time I was sent to jail was in 1960. The main charge was my refusal to join the Three Self movement.
Why would these evangelists rather be imprisoned than join the government-controlled Three Self Church?
We believe that Jesus is the head of the church, not any person or organization. Politics and religion should be separate. When you try to integrate them, the church deteriorates and can become a political tool.
They also had serious questions about the faith of Wu Yaozong and other leaders of the Three Self Churches.
One day during a dinner conversation, I asked Wu Yaozong what he thought about the miracles performed by Jesus. He said he had rejected those long ago.
Wu Yaozong and Ding Guanshun, they both belong to a faction which we called the non-believers group. We refused to join them because we felt they didn't have faith.
Within 10 years, almost all the evangelists who refused to join the Three Self Church were imprisoned or put into labor camps. Madame Yang Xinfei was one of them. She graduated from the Shanghai Music Academy in 1957 and was 27 when arrested. She spent 20 years in jail. The night she was arrested, her father was very ill.
My dad was already in bed. I went to say goodbye to him. I also asked for my mother. We always pray before leaving home. There was one policeman standing guard beside her, and another one beside me. My mother prayed to the Lord, begging him to take care of me. Have mercy on my daughter. Let her live peacefully and bring her back safe and sound. May the Lord be with her. Then I left home and went to the labor camp.
During this harsh winter of faith, the land was frozen and bleak, but the wheat did not die. Underneath the ice and snow, seeds were struggling to take root, waiting for spring to come.
服刑
I was in jail for 21 years and 8 months in Heilongjiang province near the former Soviet Union. It was extremely cold there and a lot of people died. But you know, all those years I never got sick. Not only did I survive, I wasn't sick a single day. So I know God still has work for me to do.
The hardest part was that all the women criminals were locked up in one room, and it was too noisy to sleep. I also need to pray every day, or I can't sleep. So I waited until they all fall asleep, and I crept up out of bed and knelt and prayed to God. Every night was like this until I left the labor camp.
I had to pull the blankets over my head and pray. There was no Bible, but a hymn stayed with me. You know the one? The Old Rugged Cross.
我要高去宣扬主是家。
So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown.
十字架可换公义冠冕。
I sang it over and over to keep my spirits up.
The path of the cross was paved with humiliation and suffering. For those who chose to walk this path, every step was taken with blood and tears.
我是23年多的这样长的时间。
I was in jail for 23 years. If they had told me that it would last 23 years, I don't think I would have made it. When they held a public meeting to criticize and denounce me, they asked, "Do you still believe in God? Do you still believe in Jesus?" They pulled my hair and my ears. They punched me, knocked me to the ground, and kicked me. And they jerked my handcuffs and asked, "Do you believe? Do you still believe?" The handcuffs had made deep gouges in my flesh, which had started to fester. They hauled me away like this, back and forth, but I prayed to the Lord. I have followed you as far as I can. Surely you're not glorified when they denounce and torture me each day. I'm your servant and your child. Are you glorified in heaven when I'm suffering like this? In prayer, I entrusted my whole family to the Lord. Then I was ready to kill myself. But how could I do it with handcuffs on? When the two guards went for lunch, I jumped onto the bed and unscrewed the light bulb. I planned to kill myself with an electric shock. But the electricity wasn't strong enough. Later, people told me it was because I had handcuffs on. The handcuffs diverted the electricity and saved me. While I was in the middle of doing this, people from outside noticed and shouted, "Moses Shea wants to kill himself." The government officials called me out and lectured me. "You want to threaten the government? You want to make the government look bad by killing yourself?" At night, I confessed to God. I said, "Heavenly Father, I have fallen short of your glory. I have made it through 12 years of labor camp and endured a lot of suffering. Why couldn't I rely on you till the very end? I am not worthy of your glory. Please forgive me, O Lord." Then I heard the Lord speak to me. "Dear child, my grace is sufficient for you. Dear child, my grace is sufficient for you." And the third time he spoke so very gently, "My grace is sufficient for you." The Lord comforted me, and by his grace I survived.